Hey everyone, in today's video, what we are going to be talking about is the top 4 companies on the TSX that currently pay over a 6% dividend. This is huge. Some of these companies are quite interesting, some are not. And of course, this is all from the list that was on the Montly Fool about the top 4 companies on the TSX that pay over 6%. Now, some of these are interesting, so let's go check these out. Now, the first one on this list is TC Energy Corporation. That's TransCanada. And, of course, they are TRP on the Canadian Stock Exchange. They currently pay 6.08% of a dividend every year. Now, that would be equal to $3.48 per share. Their PE ratio is actually quite low for a company on the TSX and a high dividend paying company on the TSX. Generally speaking, for a high dividend payer on the TSX, you generally want to be between 10 and 15. Sometimes they reach up into the 20 range, but generally around that range is a safe range if you're looking for a high dividend paying company. From there, you want to look at volume, and 4.2 million shares is good. Now, over the past 5 years, we've seen that they did stabilize and then there was a downturn. What happened here? Well, there was a decrease in oil prices. And then, of course, they grew once again, which was fantastic. They grew up to $75 before the coronavirus. And then there was the oil crisis, going into negative dollars per barrel of oil. Imagine if you could get paid to store oil, that would be fantastic. But oil is still kind of low. It is starting to grow back, and of course they did get that hit from the Obama administration when the Obama administration said, hey, you're no longer building your pipeline. We don't want Canadian oil in the States. Well, it's going to happen anyways, but they wanted to shut that line down. They did. Of course, it wasn't built yet. And when you really look at a company who's dealing business, especially in what's become a controversial business these days, which is pipelines, safer than trains in my opinion, but of course everyone does have their own opinions. When you've got one administration, Obama, who said, hey, we don't want it here, and then you got Trump. Well, Obama couldn't really make a decision for himself, but then there was Trump who said, yes, it's okay, and then you've got Biden who says no, and when you've got basically every other president who says yes, there's no sense in even building it anyways, so I don't know why they just continued. If they couldn't get it done before Trump was out, then they knew it was going to be canceled, so it was just an endless money pit in my own personal opinion, and they finally got rid of it. And of course it's going to hit their bottom line, but I think that they've got some growth to go yet. Their CEO has said that he thinks that they're a cheap company, and I seen that on an article about a year ago, so that was a while ago. But recently he said that he wants to raise the dividend, and I personally think that's a great decision, especially when you're already looking at a higher paying dividend company. But you have to really start wondering, is this a dangerous company to be in because they're paying at such a high dividend? Well, how oil contracts work, from my very limited knowledge on that field, I'm more of a Canadian bank kind of guy and technology kind of guy, but when it comes to the oil contracts, when it comes to pipelines, from what I know, is they make the contracts not just for a year, but usually 5, 10 plus years, and that just means it's a stable business in my opinion. And then when you look at the financials, they did beat in the first quarter, second quarter they met guidelines, and then third quarter was a beat, and fourth quarter was a beat. Fourth quarter was a massive beat, same as their first quarter back there. So what I'm personally thinking is, if you were to invest a little bit today before the earnings and then invested the rest after the earnings, if they had a good earnings call, then you're all set. At least you'll be getting a dividend. And of course, if it does go up, at least you're in the game. If it goes down, then you can lower your average by just buying in at a lower point. Another one is Enbridge. This one is paying 7.4%, which is huge. They trade at 10 million plus shares traded per day, which is huge as well. Their 5-year chart is quite interesting because they were on the decline essentially. Anyways, they were having lower highs, and then they've kind of stabilized. This was the same with everybody, so I'm not too sure if they're going to be increasing their share price. But when it comes to their CEO has mentioned on really recent BNN articles that he wants to raise the dividend, which is kind of interesting. He maybe thinks that the stock price is going to go higher, which then basically allows them to continue to pay a high dividend. Pipeline companies historically have always paid high dividends. Their financials, their revenue's gone down in 2020, but of course oil prices were very low. They did have good earnings, okay earnings, very bad, and now we don't know what's going to happen. So generally when there's 2 bad earnings in a row, we kind of hope that they have good earnings, but of course that's always a risky call. If you're willing to gamble, go for it, but I would not be investing in this one just as of yet. I would want to see those earnings coming out first to see if they beat the earnings call, or at least what the analysts are expecting. BCE, I have my own opinion on BCE, and of course, it's a great company for the future because Internet of Things are going to be bigger and bigger and bigger, but it's Bell. Yes, they do cable. Yes, they've got TV channels, things like that, but their biggest potential in the future is internet, and I think that's going to be eaten up by companies like SpaceX and Starlink because their internet's probably going to be cheaper, faster, and more reliable. And of course, that's my own personal opinion. You may have a different opinion, but I just don't like the communication companies in Canada, and I don't think anyone likes the communication companies in the world anyways. So that's my own personal opinion. They do pay a 6.06% dividend, and they do have high volume on their shares. On a 5-year chart, they really don't do much, but they are on the lower end of their 5-year chart. So of course, if they continue to go within this range of 63, 64 down to about 50, then you can start playing the up and downs of this stock, get a couple of different dividends on the way. But I personally am essentially staying away from Rogers, Bell, TELUS, any of those companies myself. They may pay high dividends, but of course the future is unreally seen at all because of course more and more satellites in space by SpaceX is going to be eating away from their business. They did have a very bad second quarter last year. That's, of course, they had a lot less people wanting to pay the money for internet and things like that because, of course, there was a downturn in pretty much jobs in general. But, of course, they have had 3 out of 4 good quarters recently. And PPL is another company that is quite interesting. They do pay 6.09%. They do have a high share volume trading, but of course they are on the decline. I would not be investing a lot of money on a company that is on a decline unless you personally feel that they're going back up. Now, I do have a little bit of experience with that company when I've done some research in the past over the last couple of years, but I just personally, if a company has a history of losing share price, I'm just not investing. Unless there is some massive news that they might do something in the future, and there really isn't with this company. It's just to get a massive dividend. So personally, TransCanada is the best. I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, hit that like button and subscribe, and I will see you guys again next time. My camera died, so of course, up in this corner is another video, and over in this corner is to subscribe. So I hope that you have a great day. I'll see you guys in my next video.